Very dear students, Assalamu alaikum. The topic of today's lecture, as you can see on the slide, the virtual Quran. Let's first clarify the meaning of Quran with K, Quran. When this word is written with K, and we are talking about the various translations of the Holy Quran into English. Actually, this K stands for the text other than the Quranic text, that is the translated text. So to differentiate between the original Quranic text in Arabic language, which is we usually write with Q, Quran, and between the translated text, and especially in English, I think this idea is very, academically is very splendid idea that we write it with K. So whenever we use this word with K and write in this K in our presentations, actually we are not talking about the text of the Quran. We are talking about the text produced on the basis of the original text of our holy book, Al-Quran. In this lecture, I shall be talking about four major points. Number one is the dichotomy of internet and Quran translation, and the best Quran online and other Qurans online, and online websites for Quran with K. So let's see the first very important point. We know that with the invention and advent and advancement of www internet, that is the World Wide Web, a lot of information became available and flow, and actually it's a flood of information, but there are problems with this information. Yeah, the information are endless, but at the same time some of the information they are mindless, because the usage is also without any proper logical or based on the logical selection. And information on www, that is internet, does not distinguish between the true and the false, because the internet does not tell us that this information is true, and is a human's effort is needed to distinguish between these two pole apart characteristics. The important and the insignificant, internet does not tell us that this is the important or this is insignificant, and also does not distinguish between the enduring and the temporary. So on the one side, it is a great facility for the flow of knowledge, and it's kind of ocean of knowledge that is available for human being with this advancement in technology. But on the other side, this facility has its own cons as well, problems as well, and difficulties as well. So keeping these fundamental characteristics of the information available on internet, it actually all the academic field, they are facing this, they faced, and they are still facing, and they shall be, I think, facing this dichotomy. So what happened when it comes to the Quran on internet? A lot of people started uploading different translations, varied agendas. They had varied agendas, especially after 9/11 2001, because the world changed after this event that took place on 9/11 in America. So the many people, with their negative agendas or positive agendas or their own ideology related to their own sect or their own school of thought, they started, of course, providing various kind of information about Quran or about Islam, and especially we are talking about the Quran translation into English. So what we find and on internet is whole spectrum of translations, English translations, ranging between bad on the left side and to the best on the right side. So the whole spectrum of English translations are available on internet, with, of course, as I said earlier, without any distinction between what is good, what is bad, what are the parameters to select the good one among from others. So this created a concern among the Muslims, and most prominently the Malaysian Ministry of Islamic Affairs. They took very serious notice of this situation. So they constituted a special team of experts to provide correct translations of Quran into English, and also to promote the teaching of Quranic Arabic language to their students, so that they do not become prey of wrong information available on internet. Wikipedia is one of the one of I mean the most prominent source available on internet, but Wikipedia has its own also pros and cons. So the article on Quran translations into English on Wikipedia, it is again full of information without any guidepost. Same issue is reflected here. Numerous translators for focusing on their origin. Even known translators have been mentioned in Wikipedia article, but the focus remains on very surface level, that this translation belongs to that country or that sect or that color and race and so on and so forth. So we can consider the article on Wikipedia as a catalog with little effort at critical insight. So no, we don't find any critical insight in this bunch of information available in Wikipedia article. So the article is disjointed comments without any analysis. It does not tell us what and who and why this translation, and by whom this translation, at what time, and what are the significant features of this translation for evaluating, and how can we place this among the long list of English translations, where we should how can we prioritize a particular translation, English translation, in the list of more than 100 English translations in the modern world. Uh, with this, we have one exception, which is the Arthur John Arbery, or in short, we call him Arbery. Arbery was a British Orientalist and scholar, translator, and author. He specialized in Sufi studies. He wrote, translated, and edited about 90 books on Persian and Arabic. But he is best known in the Muslim world for his translation. The title of his translation is The Quran Interpreted. And many Muslim scholars have discussed this title in detail, especially focusing on the word interpreted. That the Arbery, although he's a non-Muslim and he is an Orientalist, so he did not call his version a translation. Rather, he called it interpreted. That means the the way the author, the translator, has understood the Quranic text, the original Quranic text, has been expressed in English language, that is interpreted. RB, of course, as usual, the translators, the Quran translators, always they give their opinion about other translations. So his opinion about other previous translations was very interesting, and in a way very drastic as well. So he says a certain uniformity and dull monotony is characteristics of all translations from 17th century down to the 20th century. So it looks a very big claim, and it needs a serious research. But this is a human nature. We have discussed in our previous lecture that this syndrome of being first, still we are it continues here with Arbery as well. So no attempt to imitate this is again the opinion of Arbery about other translation. No attempt to imitate the rhetorical and rhythmical patterns which are the glory and the sublimity of the Quran. That was his objective, to imitate whatever he could, the rhetorical, that is balagha, and rhythmical, that is of course the poetic beauty embedded in Quranic text, patterns, and to express them in the English translation, because he thought that these two characteristics are actually of very significant or related to the Quran. So he made this objective for his translation, the Quran interpreted. That is the of course the opinion that his translation remains one of the best selling. The best Quran online. So we have here talk about some best Quran online, and Quran with K, that is the English translations. Number one is Muhammad Abdul Haleem. He's professor of Islamic studies at the School of Oriental and African Studies, London, and he spent years in learning, reciting, studying, and translating the Quran. So man has spent his life in the service of the Quran. So he gave the title of his translation, the Quran English translation and parallel Arabic text. The Quran, as you can see, the Quran, the Quranic text, and then English translation and parallel text. So it was published in 2004. He also wrote a very very good preface where he provided Islamic articles of faith and history of the revelation, compilation of the Quran, and English translations of the Quran, a kind of history of English translations of the Quran, and Prophet Muhammad's exemplary life. So from that aspect, his preface is also very is very informative, and is well written document that can be benefited from in these topics. His translation is in clear and simple English, although in his views he seems very traditional and conservative. When he renders different kinds of when he renders the Quranic text, so he looks that he has a conservative views. He did not pay attention to aesthetic appeal. That is the again the point that I just touched in the previous slides. That is the rhetorical and rhythmical patterns of the Quranic text. So he what he tried was a different thing. So to make the 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 translation of Quran is simple, in a simple and clear English. So for that, he did not make any effort to match its rhythms with English language. So that is very important aspect to be noted. So he is very much distinct from the previous Arbery's translation, because primarily from the very beginning he did not make it this his objective. The next best Quran translation is Wahiduddin Khan. Wahiduddin Khan is a prolific religious leader in India, and the title of his translation is The Quran Translation and Commentary with Parallel Arabic Text, and it was published 2009. Wahiduddin Khan, being very lucky because he was assisted by two family members, his son and his daughter as well, and his translation widely disseminated beyond India without Arabic text. Of course there are different versions. Of course the original versions combine the original text with, of course, commentary, but in other, especially Turkey and other Muslim countries, the only translation, Quran with K, is published and disseminated among the general reader. We have another one of the best Quran translation on online is Tarif Khalidi, that is Arab translator. He is professor of Islamic studies at the American University of Beirut, and the title of his translation is The Quran in New Translation. It was published in 2008, and it is this translation, especially by the Muslim experts in Quranic studies, is deemed a worthy counterweight to Orientalist attacks on Quran, because the Quran is attacked by the Orientalist on various sides from various dimensions. So his translation is considered as a worthy response, a very strong rebuttal to what Orientalists wrote about or criticized the Quran from the Quranic text or worldview and gender exclusiveness. So he has translated, and of course, keeping in view these points. This translation is widely available online but less popular than Arbery. Uh, he attempted to reproduce the rhythms and distinctive verbal structure of the Arabic text. So he, like Arbery, tried to incorporate in his translation the Quranic characteristics related to rhetoric and rhythms and rhymes and so on and so forth. Although his devices remains is some contrived, limited, but he attempted his best to incorporate these characteristics as well in his translation. So from this aspect, his translation is a mixture of horizontal prose and vertical poetic layout. Horizontal prose is the we can say the where is the meaning is clear. So he uses the general prose style, but wherever the meaning is condensed in the construction of the Quranic words, especially the Makki surahs. So there he tries to bring some vertical poetic layout, trying, of course, the same effort is behind this, is to make the rhetorical and rhythmic features of Quran visible in English. The purpose to match the source and target languages with parallel, contrast, rhythmic recurrence, sonority, verbal energy, and rhymed ending. So this is the purpose he has attempted, although he is not very much successful, and for a very obvious reason, because he is not a native English speaker like Arbery and like other English, the native English translators of the Holy Quran. He was basically an Arab. We should not expect too much from a person who is not a native in that language, regardless of his degree or regardless of his long experience, because this is quite natural. The next, what we can call best Quran online is the Ali Kuli Karai. He originally is Iranian, but he belongs to India. The Quran with a phrase, that is the title of his translation of Quran. The Quran with a phrase by phrase English translation. The title also suggests that he made a different kind of objective in mind. So it was published in 2004, and the purpose was to assist English readers in finding formal equivalence, that what he of course says about his translation, in finding formal equivalence of phrases and clauses in ST and TT. So in the source text on one side Arabic and the target text on the other side in English. And this will enable, as he hopes, readers to closely follow the meaning. He relied on well-known classical commentaries, both the Sunni, because he was Shia scholar. So he Sunni and Shia, especially the traditions and riwayat reported by the Ahlul Bayt. So he has also relied on commentaries in general, especially the Shia commentaries. Another translation of this kind is Ali Unal. He belongs to Turkish. He's a member of Gulen movement. We should know that we should have some idea of the Gulen movement and Islamic movement, which, of course, although started basically with the writings of Nursi in the late 19th century, and of course, then it continued in 20th century. Still, Gulen movement is there. So the title of his translation is the Quran with annotated interpretation in modern English, and it was published in 2008. His tone, although is progressive and tolerant, but lacks any rhythmic or elevated tone. Again, the same which we have observed in Muhammad Abdul Haleem's English translation. He relied on Fathullah and Badiuzzzaman Said Nursi's interpretation of Quran. As I said, he is one of the followers of Fathullah's Hizmat movement, and which is based on apparently on Badiuzzzaman Said Nursi, because Fathullah was the is the disciple student of Badiuzzzaman Said Nursi. So he relied mostly for the interpretation and understanding of the Quranic text on the writings of these two scholars. So we can move from the best to other Quran's translation, and especially the Quran translation through collective efforts. So these are the translations, the result of teamwork. So first of this kind is the title is the Majestic Quran, an English rendition of its meanings, and it was published 2000, and it was written prepared by a committee, and these are the writers: Timothy Winter, and the Muslim name is Abdul Hakim Murad, and Usman Hushinson, and Mustafa Al Badawi. No longer available in print, but it is available on internet, because here we are talking about the Quran on online. This translation, the Majestic Quran, an English rendition of its meaning, which was published in 2000, is highly derivative. That means, it has it is based on an earlier translation by a committee of these people: Ali Ozak and Uznologlu and Toplzoglu and Mastoglu. So these, this Majestic Quran and English rendition of its meaning is based on the previous translation by these three scholars, and the title of their translation was, which was published in 1992 in Istanbul, the Holy Quran with English translation, which itself, this Holy Quran with the English translation, which was published in 1992, itself largely derived from Pickthall, Yusuf Ali's 1937 versions. We know that Yusuf Ali's the original translation was published complete in 1937, but then many revisions, especially the revisions that took place when it was published in Saudi Arabia. So we always mention two versions. So the original version is 1937, and I think the second was 1963. I'm not sure, but what I remember is this one. So this translation actually is derived from these two great translators. The second of this kind is a translation by through a Dreamwork, the Quran, a monotheist translation, which was published in 2012, and it was produced by Adib Yüksel, Laith Saleh Shayban, and Martha Shuttle. The copy of this again is a copy of earlier work by the same team. They produced, of course, another translation in 2008, but this, which was published in 2012, actually is a copy of the previous version, which they themselves produced in 2008, with the title "The Quran, a Pure and Literal Translation." The first version, of course, when they published in 2008, it was published without the name of the translators. So it's an anonymous group of self-identified progressive Muslims. So the purpose of these three people was to make the Quran accessible to modern readers. Now we shall talk about on the website. Talk about the websites that where we find the Quran translation. That the website that combine and present various Quran translation in English. So the dominance of traffic on Quranic studies, we have touched this aspect earlier as well, especially in searches for the multi-layered meaning of the Quran. Actually, the of course the on one side the advent of internet on one side, on side what happened after, and how world changed after 9/11 2001. These two factors led people towards understanding of the Quranic text with sincere, of course, intention, and with agendas, with both things. Anyways, we have here to talk about five important websites that provide English translations of the Holy Quran. Number one is alim.org, number two is atafsiz.org, and number three is tanzil.net, and Number 4 is alquran.info, and number 5 is islamawakened.com. So let's take quick view of the alim.orgs, which was founded in 1991 by two South Asian Muslim software experts. We see that the website is the area of the software engineers, or the people those who develop these softwares and the websites. So it was actually founded in 1991. And what was the purpose? The purpose was bigger than what we are talking about: to offer online and educational tool, social network for Muslims, and general purpose portal that provides information about what interests Muslim. So in this website and portal, all what interests the Muslims is available, including the Quran translation. The claim is that the first program to combine what the powers of Quranic translation. That is their claim, and really it is very old one, 1991. And the commentaries and extensive subject database. That is their claim. Host of other supporting information. As I said, that the website is not for Quran translation. It also serves in other areas related to the, of course, the Muslim communities in West in general and in America especially. As for the translations are concerned, on this website we find Asad and Farooq Azam Malik, Pickthall, and Yusuf Ali. So here Yusuf Ali's the Saudi edited version is provided on this website. So translations of verses can be compared by a set of consecutive clicks for each verse. So if you want to compare various translations, these given four translations on of a particular verse, so it can be compared by a set of consecutive clicks for each verse. So you have to, of course, click for each verse, and you find these translations. The second website, important website, is atafsir.org, and was founded in 2001 and by the Royal Al Bayt Institute for Islamic Thought, Jordan. And what was the aim? To provide access to the largest and greatest online collection of Quranic commentary. Remember, this atafsir.org primarily is focusing on the provision of the Quranic commentaries, but in addition to that, translation, recitation, and essential resources of the Holy Quran, and of course the Hadith as well. They are developing actually, and they are working in a different phases. So the other phase that became little late is the about Hadith. So 10 English translations are available on this website: Pickthall, Yusuf Ali, Arbery, Asad, Martin Links, which is not complete, Muhammad Taqi Usmani, that is Mufti Muhammad Taqi Usmani, and Muhammad Dr. Tahirul Qadri, and Sahih International, Lale Bakhtiar, and Royal Al Bayt Institute's translation. These 10 translations are available on this website, can be viewed serially from page to page. Cannot be directly compared on the same screen. So you have to go to you can only view translation of one verse and one translation at a time, and then if you want to see the other, you have to, of course, select that translator and click it again, so that and then it appears in front of you. The third important website for Quran translation is Tanzil.net, and it was founded in 2007 by an Iranian computer scientist with his team. And this website has also several streams. One of these streams is for Quran translation, and it includes 17 English translations, of course, in addition to the Quran translation to other languages, as well as we see the translations of Quran to other languages in atafsir.org and in the previous website. So it can be downloaded one by one. Tanzil.net translation can be downloaded one by one. And before downloading, of course, if you want to compare it, it is a little easier than the atafsir.org. There is a facility of comparison verse by verse. So if you select one verse and place the mouse over the Arabic verse, then select the translation. So the name of the translators appears when you place the mouse over the Quranic verse or the text, the name of the translator. So you select one of the translators. So it's not possible to do side-by-side comparison on a single verse as with alim.org, as we have seen, 4 translations there. No rationale. This is another important thing, that no rationale as to why some translations were included and others, very important English translations, have been excluded. The fourth website, important website, where we find English translations is alquran.info. It was found by 2 computer scientists in 2007. And what was the purpose? To improve the way sacred texts are freely studied, compared, and recited online. So where there we find enormous inventory of foreign translations in multiple languages. 40 offerings of English translations are available in this important website. And in a cluster of 5, translations can be compared. So out of 40, in a cluster of 5, you can compare the translations. The translations are evaluated, and this is the weak point in this website, is the translations are evaluated as per wikipedia.org criteria. We have discussed the Wikipedia earlier, and we know the article of Wikipedia on Quran translation in many languages, especially in English. The information, as no doubt, are much, but the critical review, or the we don't know what should be the number one or number two, to prioritize, how to prioritize these translation, and what are the parameters to evaluate these translations. Hence, what is the result of this on this website? That the Ahmad Zaki Hamad is commended but never evaluated. And then Maulana Muhammad Ali's translation, English translation, which was published in 1970s, is never mentioned, whereas Shakir, who relied too much on his Muhammad Ali's translation, and Shakir's translation was published in 1970, included and lauded despite the evidence of his dependence on Muhammad Ali. So reference of Thomas Cleary, 2004, his translation is surprising. He is praised, but his translation is not found. So we can say that the huge information or translations are available, but the criterion has not been taken into account while presenting the translation. The fourth website is the islamawaken.com, and it started in 2003 by an Anglo convert to Islam, and it provides us 62 English translations, and that can be viewed on a single verse simultaneously. If you click on a single verse, you find 62 translations in one page. So you can scroll down and find how other translators have translated this verse. So it's a great facility and ease of retrieval and clarity of information as compared to the previous alim.org, tafsir.org, and tanzil.net. They exceeds all other comparative websites, this islamawaken.com, as of 2001. So what we find for each verse, these are more important things, that for each word we find an entered in Arabic. Of course, the verses in Arabic is available. 2 transliterations, 2 different schemes of transliterating the Arabic verse for the reading for the English readers, for the sake of pronunciation or learning pronunciation of how to recite the Quran. Number 3 is word for word translation. This is very important addition here, followed by 62 English translations. So basically what we find here are 4 things systematically presented, and for the sake of comparison and analysis, this is a very good facility for the learners and for the researchers both. Another very important characteristics of this website, that it categorized. So it has categorized the Quran translation with K So these are four categories here that we find. Number one is generally accepted translations of the meaning. So one category of the translations, and then controversial or status undetermined works. Another category. Number three is non-Muslim and or Orientalist works. Number four, new and or partial translations and works in progress. So they have of course advanced much in this direction as well. I just in the previous website sorry slide, I just discussed that these four very peculiar features are available on this website. But here this categorization actually is another good facility, although we can debate this categorization on what basis the generally accepted translations of the meaning, what are the translations and why they have been put in this category, on what has been the criterion. And then the controversial or status undetermined works, because here we find some very popular translations under this category. So we can discuss, we can debate, we can of course differ as for our opinion or others opinion is concerned regarding the foundation for this categorization. But in itself, this facility categorization of Quran in such a way is a great facility for the learners, for the seekers, and for the researchers especially. With this lecture ends. My dear students, take very good care of yourself. Assalamu alaikum.